Well, hi guys, welcome back to another edition of F1 Podcast. It's good to be with you again after a short break. Pep, we find ourselves in China now after the opening two races of the season. What are your thoughts of the season so far?
Mate, we've got the Shanghai this weekend, which is pretty exciting. We've had two races down and pretty much dominant performance by Seb Vettel, mate. Very impressive performance over the first two Grand Prix, buddy.
Would you say they're Red Bullish?
Yeah. Mate, the guy's been running away with it a little bit, and what I really want is a little bit of competition. I remember when Button was doing the same in 2009, and I was thinking, I'm happy for the guy, but I want some competition. I want Mark Webber, I want Ferrari, I want McLaren, Mercedes, I want Renault. I want someone to take the fight up to Seb, mate.
HRT, Virgin.
Yeah, anyone.
Right. It's been a pretty dominant performance so far this season, and Vettel's aiming to be the first driver since Michael in 2004 to win 3 on the trot. I think he's probably got it in him too. If we look back to the last two races, after the first lap he was leading by 2 and 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And just robbed home from there. So that car's certainly dialed in. There's no doubt about it, and it's left the opposition wanting. In particular Ferrari, but McLaren are there or thereabouts, and it won't take long for McLaren to get back to the top, I'm sure, and start challenging. But it's been pretty dominant so far.
Mate, what I find interesting with this performance by Seb is that he seems to be managing the gaps really well, and he seems to have a lot in hand. It's a little bit scary that he could go a lot faster. For example, in Australia, no KERS. In Malaysia, KERS was sort of in and out, switched off, and then it was back on again. And you think, well, geez, this guy's got there's so much pace in that Red Bull, and the guy's so supremely confident at the moment. I just don't think that he's really pushed himself yet, and he's had two pretty dominant victories.
Well, he's had no one to push him. When you think about it, at the end of the day, Lewis is trying his best, as is Jensen. It was great to see Jensen on the podium last week, incidentally. But he hasn't really had anyone take the fight to him. And I thought it was interesting when Mark Webber was queried about his performance in the opening two races of the season. Has he been rattled by Seb? Mark got very defensive, very, very defensive, by saying, if I was a young guy, it'd bother me, but I've been around the block a bit. I think he has been rattled a little bit, especially after his performances of last year, and I don't believe he was expecting Seb to run away with it as he has so far in the opening two rounds. Mind you, I think McLaren were very confident as well after Australia. The car looks good and is dialed in, and if we cast our mind back to pre-season testing, there's a lot of question marks over McLaren as to whether or not they were sandbagging, but they've got the car dialed in now, no doubt about
absolutely
that.
They have.
But Seb's still romping away. I think they'd all be rattled, quite frankly.
Mark's had some mechanical issues, let's face it, but I think you're right, Max. I think he is a little bit psychologically. I can see that he's wondering where he's going to find this pace because Seb's doing so well. And as you just said a second ago, mate, McLaren's have done really well, and as have the Renaults with 2 podiums. Petrov and then Heidfeld in Malaysia. Really, really pleased to see those guys on the podium, mate.
It was great, and we were watching Mark trying to jump Nick Heidfeld into 3rd position in Malaysia. I was secretly willing Nick to stay ahead of him, actually, if I can be blunt and honest with you. Because it was great to see Nick Heidfeld once again on the podium, and can't stand his overalls. Renault, do something about your overalls.
You don't want the gold?
Oh, Christ.
It's very 1970s, Max. He's got the 1970s sunglasses.
He does. 1970s haircut, 1970s sunglasses, and 1970s overalls. I was looking for some bell-bottom flares off the bloody things. But it was great to see Nick Heidfeld back on the podium, and I think Renault was surprised. Two third places in the opening 2 rounds. Fantastic effort.
So we've had basically Seb, the McLaren, 2 McLaren drivers and the 2 Renault drivers on the podium, and hopefully this weekend in Malaysia it gets mixed up in China. It gets mixed up a little bit and we see some other people on the podium.
I'd like to see a Ferrari on the podium. They're being found wanting. There's something inherently wrong with that car, there's no doubt about it. I don't know whether it was born bad or not, but it's just off the pace.
Mate, not only Ferrari, there's Mercedes as well. There was so much confidence after the testing, after the winter testing, and the fact that the last Grand Prix Michael Schumacher didn't make it into the last period of qualifying, I was just shaking my head saying, what's going on with this Mercedes, mate? I mean, there's really some issues with both of those cars, and they're the ones really that need to take the fight up. Ferrari particularly, but also Mercedes, mate.
Totally agree with you. There's definitely something wrong with that Mercedes. There's no doubt about it. From initial races, I don't know what it is, but they better dial it in quick smart, because they're going to get left behind and blown into the weeds if they don't do something about it soon. And I would also say the same for Ferrari at this stage as well. I'm also very concerned about our friends at Williams. Don't know what's
reliability issues there. Yeah.
Don't know what's going on there, and it's terrible.
I was reading yesterday that Sam Michael might be having a little cloud over him. I'm sure you read the same article, Max.
I did.
So we'll have to see what Williams can do, because really they need to pick up their game. They've had a difficult time over the last few seasons, sure, but they're going backwards, mate.
They are, ever since Patrick Head handed over to Sam Michael. Of course, there's a period of adjustment and bedding in and all that sort of thing, but that time's come and gone now.
Yeah.
And there's something I don't know what it is, but they're just not delivering. Unfortunately, they've got the most experienced driver on the circuit in their team, Rubens Barrichello, and the car's just not reliable enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a few surprises this year, a few things that have been thrown up, and it's not as we expected.
Well, guys, the other thing we wanted to talk about was the Pirelli tyres. There's been a lot of banter about these tyres, and I guess the first thing I wanted to say is Perez's impressive performance in Albert Park doing just one pit stop. And that kind of surprised a lot of people who were expecting that, every race was going to have 3 or 4 pit stops, and then here we have a rookie in Formula 1 driving a Sauber doing one stop. And everyone talks about the cliff with these Pirelli tyres and how they drop off very quickly. Yeah. And what are your thoughts, Max? And guys, let us know your thoughts on this Pirelli situation. I think we've said in the past that Pirelli are doing exactly what they were told to do, which is to build a tyre which had these characteristics. And I think it's great. I enjoy more pit stops in Formula 1, and I've got no problems with the Pirelli tyres so far, mate. I think they've been. I know there's some issues with there was some issues with the marbles in Malaysia, but
and that will continue. I'm like you. I've been quite impressed with the tyres and them coming off after a few laps. I think that's great for the sport. When you think about it, we don't have refueling anymore, but having the pit stops or multiple pit stops now, I think adds to the excitement. No doubt about it. Major difference with the Pirellis when you think back compared to the Bridgestones. The Bridgestones would go off after a while, but then if you cooled them down a little bit, then they'd partially come back again, whereas the Pirellis don't. You are right, it is a cliff. Once they go off,
that's it.
They're off. And we saw some cars last weekend in Malaysia going very wide because their tyres had gone off. And I think it adds to the spectacle, there's no doubt about it. And I think, once again, Pirelli have done what was asked of them. I think they put out a good tyre, and it's spicing the racing up, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, I actually quite like it, mate. But moving on from that, something that I don't like is the DRS system this year. I haven't enjoyed that at all, mate. When the opening round was on in Albert Park, and I think it was Jenson Button who did the first DRS pass, not overtake, pass, on the main straight there. I really felt underwhelmed. The fact that pass happened, it's like, okay, Jensen's pushed the button and got past the driver. We had lots of overtaking in Malaysia, and a lot of that was due to the DRS, and it shits me, mate. I don't like it. I think the DRS is crap, and I'd like to see them. I don't want to see it anymore in Formula 1. It's just not. I love the technical aspect of Formula 1. I love all that technical stuff, but to push a button, open the rear wing, and pass, to me is furphy racing. It's PlayStation racing, and I don't like it. Okay,
fair enough. And we'd love to hear your comments on DRS. Whether you think it's effective, whether you think it's good for the sport, whether you think it spices things up. We've got to deal with curves. I mean, that's just a fact of life now, and I'm sure we'll just have to deal with DRS. It's only in its infancy. There's no doubt about it. I could see that in the future, you might see DRS being used or being allowed to be used a lot more. At this stage, as you know, there's a designated zone on the track that you can use it. I could see that probably being developed a little bit further. But
So like during practice where they just open and close it throughout the whole lap?
I think that's wrong. To me, that sort of defeats the purpose of having it. If you can't use it like that in a race, well, what's the point of having it in a race? But it's just my opinion. I'm old school. I'm not for any of these bells and whistles, quite frankly. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it, and drop us a line and let us know what you think.
Yeah, I think maybe if they had a car that altered itself during the lap, to go quicker, that's different to actually pushing a button to pass. And I don't think that's what motor racing's all about.
Do you mean like a car turning into a robot like Transformers?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sure. Or some machine guns on F1 cars. Wouldn't we like to see that? Woo-hoo!
So, mate, the last thing we've got on our list is the 107% rule. We've had a couple of Grand Prix now where we can observe how this has been going, and
love it. Glad it's back.
Yeah?
Glad it's back.
Yeah, I'm the same, mate. I really think that last year there was a little bit of sympathy towards the new teams that were, coming into Formula One, and that sympathy now has sort of gone away, particularly with HRT at Albert Park, mate, when they failed to qualify.
Perfect.
And a lot of people were saying, well, good. That they're not fast enough, and this is Formula One, and I agree, mate. If you're not within 7% of the first qualifying time, then you don't get a start, and you need to pick up your game. I think it's great.
These people are mobile speed humps. At the end of the day, if you're not quick enough, you don't deserve to be there. And that should be a clear warning to any team that comes into Formula One. If you don't perform, you don't go out in the circuit.
Yeah.
It can be very, very dangerous having these guys puttering around and panicking and moving the wrong direction or whatever. And some of you will say, well, hang on, they're professional Formula One drivers and all that sort of thing. Yeah, that's fine. But if your car's a couple of seconds a lap slower and you've got a McLaren or a Ferrari bearing down on you and you get the yips and go, ooh, do I go left or right? I don't know about that. Not at 170, 200 mile an hour.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think you should have to qualify for Formula One, and I'm so pleased that they brought the 107 rule back.
So am I, mate. Well, let us know your comments, guys. We don't have anything more on our list, Max.
We're about to watch qualifying actually
Yes.
for the Chinese Grand Prix at the Shanghai.
Yes.
I hope you all enjoy that. Your thoughts, mate, on qualifying? Who's going to qualify first?
Yeah, I'm having problems getting past Seb at the moment. I think he's, as I said at the start of the podcast, supremely confident. He's got the car, and he's very, very quick, particularly in that last Q3.
Yeah.
He always seems to pull the rabbit out of the hat, mate, and do a really good lap time. So, at this stage, I'm calling Seb to do extremely well in qualifying and in the race, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So, it's hard to go past the young German, mate.
Oh, well, he's toying with them at the moment, and I agree with you. I think Seb will qualify first. If both Red Bulls' KERS works, I can see Mark probably lining up second. If it doesn't, then I can see Hamilton
McLaren,
lining up second, and either Mark third or Jenson Button third. Quite frankly, Ferrari I don't think will be anywhere at the moment. Alonso couldn't do a long run yesterday with some hydraulic failure. So I think Seb will lock out Q1. Will lock out row one in qualifying, and we might see either Jensen or Lewis on the front row with him. We'll see.
Alright guys, we'll enjoy the Chinese Grand Prix. We certainly will, and we'll see you soon for the next video.
Okay guys, bye.
Bye.